You're clearly a Sony fanboy.
Don't waste your life, kid.
Like, I love cameras.
You know, we keep hearing all this stuff that's going to make us all jobless.
This may be controversial.
I have to use a LUMIX camera because of the brand loyalty.
I would say don't do it. That happens all the time. Run.
Run. All right, we're doing something a little bit different today. I'm here with my good pal Gary in Sheffield. Thanks for having me.
Welcome.
We're going to be running through some controversial statements, would you say?
Yeah.
And we're going to see where we're going to be landing. So we've got these two lenses here, one for you and one for me. We're going to move them depending on how much we disagree or agree with the statements. LUMIX now make better video cameras than Sony. Okay, so like video cameras, right?
Yeah.
LUMIX are still not making any sort of like video first cameras. So for me, the camera like the FX6 is still kind of like a pretty solid choice for a lot of people. It's got everything you need. And if you're just doing video, for a lot of people, that might be a better choice because you're going to have to rig up your LUMIX cameras to sort of get around a lot of things.
Yeah. The reason I'm halfway and I don't fully agree, if it said like mirrorless video camera, then I'd probably be here. The fact that it's not that LUMIX don't even compete in the FX, Burano, Venice. So yeah, if it's an overall kind of like, yeah, they make better expensive cameras, but mirrorless cameras, I think as of now, after recording this, because maybe Sony will change, maybe Canon will come in, I think LUMIX do make better mirrorless videos.
I just think like all the cameras are great to some degree now, and we're sort of arguing over minute things.
Great.
I think LUMIX is throwing everything at it and giving you more features than the sort of, but we're talking about previous generation of Sony cameras, right? So like, is that fair? I mean, in terms of now and time, yes, maybe LUMIX are here.
Yeah.
But again, we're talking about video cameras, and that Panasonic just don't really do, unless you're wanting those sort of camcorder style ones.
Dedicated video, yeah.
Yeah, and that's what they're really missing. The features, I mean, I own the LUMIX cameras because I prefer them over the Sony ones. But in terms of like dedicated video, like a pure video shooter experience, I'm still missing that camera. I want a LUMIX FX6 style camera.
I agree.
Brand loyalty in the camera world makes absolutely no sense. Yeah. It doesn't make any sense. I can see from a perspective of if you're buying into a system, you've got all the lenses, fair enough. I use all cameras for it's something I try and stress in all my videos. I'm not like using a LUMIX camera at all costs.
Yeah.
If a client says, can you use this camera? I'm not like arguing with them and saying, I have to use a LUMIX camera because of the brand loyalty.
At one point, I'd like made a video on selling one camera to buy another and also done a review on like a LUMIX camera. Yeah. And like, I'm logging into like, getting attacked from both sides of and like, you know, the comedy like right next to each other from different videos of like, you're clearly a Sony fanboy, you're clearly a LUMIX fanboy, and I'm like, you know. I
mean, I get it, like tribalism, it can feel quite comforting to be in a camp and sort of have your sort of like, your group of people, your tribe, and you can all sort of be, you know, enjoy, like people do it with cars and stuff, and I get that kind of like social element to it. But when it gets crazy when people are like getting angry about cameras because of like a logo on the front of it.
I like the saying, I care as much about them as they care about me.
Yeah, exactly.
Because all they want is you to buy their camera and then they're done with you, really. They're just trying to sell cameras. They're a business.
Corporations.
Exactly.
You can create better videos in DaVinci Resolve than you can in Premiere or Final Cut Pro.
I wanted to go in the middle. I didn't know if I was going to be not boring and go, but if you said, the reason do you know what?
Go on. Controversial.
I'm going to say you can.
You can, okay.
Simply because I don't believe that Premiere Pro and Final Cut you can color grade as good as DaVinci Resolve.
Just choose whichever one you're faster at. I've used Premiere Pro over the course of my career because you have to for certain clients sometimes or agencies, or if you've worked in-house somewhere. Never loved it, never really fell in love with it. I actually sort of like started out using Final Cut 10.
Okay, interesting.
I worked in-house somewhere, shot, and then had to edit little docs. It was perfect little sort of like quick turnarounds. But about probably not even 5 years ago, 4 years ago, I made the switch to Resolve, and I've never looked back. I still think Final Cut as a pure like click for click editing experience is probably faster with the magnetic timeline and just the way you navigate through that pure editing thing. But for everything else, you know, like transcription, color grading, media management, all that sort of, also like cloud stuff, Resolve is much better.
Okay, question. If DaVinci Resolve didn't exist, would you be on Final Cut or Premiere Pro?
Final Cut.
Okay,
yeah.
Love that.
Lenses are more important than camera sensors.
Oh, here we go. We disagree. Equally disagree.
Yeah.
Like both halfway.
Nice. I think it's, again, like of a lot of these statements, it's nuance, right?
Yeah.
And if you have a really terrible old camera and you put like really expensive lenses on, it's not going to
I've done
change
that.
that.
It looks pretty good.
It can do.
I took one of those like behind us on the shelf just over here. There's like a $200 kind of old DSLR Canon, and I put like a D0 lens on it. It looks great.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm a bit more this way because I think like if you're using like Helios lens and you get those nice characteristics, it can actually make an old camera look really interesting and nice.
Yeah.
We mentioned it in the other video, Sony A7S Mark I.
Yeah.
So I'm making a video on that at the moment. So I'm like shooting lots of stuff on it
with modern lenses.
With modern lenses, and it doesn't like they don't save it basically.
Okay, that's interesting. That's good to know.
Yeah. Mist filters are overused now. Yeah.
Yeah,
100%.
Obviously.
And I think everyone goes through that stage of when you're like, oh my God, you can stick something on front of your lens and it sort of makes the lens look more interesting.
Yeah, I often get DMs on Instagram and like messages on YouTube asking how to achieve this look. And every time it's pretty much a strong like pro mist or mist filter look. And I'm almost reluctant. I do tell them, obviously, I say, look, go and learn what you've got to learn. But in a way, it's like, you just got to get it out of your system, haven't you?
I like using really small amounts of some of the more like niche filters just to kind of like, especially on the like mirrorless cameras. So like Black Satin, 1/8, barely does anything. It slightly blooms, highlights, and softens midtones and skin and stuff. I really like using that. I just can't stand Pro Mist now, Black Pro Mist, because
I find
it's too
myself
aggressive.
Adding a Pro Mist and then battling it with contrast in the grade. So I'm like putting the contrast back in, and I'm just like, what have I done? Like, I've just done it.
Well, that's why, I think I've started using some of the others that don't have those quite like aggressive contrast tweaks. And I think there are better ways of doing that, like use an older lens or a softer lens, or add the bloom in post now. There are lots of like digital diffusion tools where you can like do it after the fact and have a little bit more.
And my final thing is, not all mist filters are built equally.
Yeah.
Some are really bad.
Buying a cinema camera won't get you more work.
Personal experience again. I've bought an expensive camera and landed jobs for owning an expensive camera. And I think I've never bought an Arri Alexa, but for someone who buys an Arri Alexa, surely some of the point about buying it is to get hired by a director, because like it becomes less about the skill that you've got with it and more about the, instead of going to that hire company, I'd just hire that guy who owns an Alexa.
I'd say to a certain degree, yeah, but if you don't have any way of demonstrating that you know what you're doing with that camera, that they go like hand in hand, like just buying the camera. If you're just like, your mum bought one.
Yeah, she won't get hired. No.
She's going to start getting hired.
Fair point. I'll move back up.
And I say it more as like a point of caution of like, a lot of the time I get these comments on my YouTube channel. It's like, oh, well, I'm struggling to get this kind of job. I think if I buy this, really expensive camera, I'm going to walk into these jobs. That's not the best way to be looking at a camera purchase.
Yeah.
And I think if you're not already on those jobs in some capacity, buying that camera is not going to allow you to walk into them. You still got to have that network or working with the types of people and projects and budgets that need those cameras. Because also, if you're just doing like low budget content creation or maybe even corporate or small business work, and you're trying to charge them, for this massive expensive camera that they don't need. Maybe
my kind of personal experience is a bit skewed by having like a portfolio and buying an expensive camera. So it's been like, oh, this guy looks half decent and he's bought an expensive camera. Maybe if my portfolio looked like ass, then they'd have been like, we don't care if he's got that expensive camera. So maybe
it does happen. When like the Komodo definitely got me on jobs where they needed a camera like that.
Yeah.
If I didn't have it, I could have rented it as well.
I know people who on their website or whatever portfolio will claim they've got an Alexa, but they just hire it when they get booked.
Interesting. Yeah, I thought about that.
So yeah, it happens.
IBIS is ruining footage more than it's helping.
I strongly disagree here. I think one of the biggest amateur things is micro shakes in footage. I think IBIS solves the problem of making small cameras feel like big cameras. I think big cameras shake has an expensive feel. And I'm not for 1 second saying IBIS gives you that. I'm saying it gets you closer to it. So surely, I know you get edge wobble, but surely it adds a little bit of...
I think this goes back to like intentionality and overuse of these automation tools like autofocus or something. And I'm like, when I first started, I was like, this is an amazing technology. And as it's kind of progressed, and I watch my videos back, especially doing more content creation with a bit more run and gun, I'm like, the motion when I'm shooting on like the Pixis or, which is, again has a slow sensor readout.
Yeah.
So it's not like a sensor readout thing. And the Komodo, I just so much prefer the way that those look when I'm shooting handheld.
Oh, okay.
Whereas the IBIS, you can tell it gives a certain like unnatural, less organic feel to the stuff sometimes. And then, like you say, when it's used unintentionally and people don't know its limitations, they're slapping on lenses. I would say don't use IBIS below 30mm because you get that edge warping.
Yeah. What I will say against your argument there, though, is they're pretty. You're going to have a V mount on the Pixis, on the Red. It's going to be a bit of a...
Which leads me to my next point. Bulk up your tiny cameras, make them heavy.
Absolutely.
If you're really bothered about stuff like that, bulk up your cameras so they're heavy and then just shoot like that. And there are plenty of times on the little mirrorless cameras where, with the 18mm on the previous gen, I just bulked the camera up and turned the IBIS off because I got better experience with it. Or with like third-party lenses. Although the cropless IBIS, for me, has been transformative on the LUMIX cameras. I think it's amazing.
That means you should come a little bit.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. Because I think that does solve some of the issues. I think that it's still technology and it has limitations. I think using it wisely. But again, it's like that overuse, and when people don't see when it's doing weird stuff. And they have otherwise beautiful looking footage, but it's all like...
If this was solely aimed at talented professionals, I'd definitely be more over here. But I think for an amateur, IBIS is only a win.
Okay. Modern camera tech peaked years ago. Okay. I feel like there's a few points I want to say here. Like, I haven't been like super excited about camera releases for about 5 years now. Like, everything is quite iterative. There's nothing where it feels like it's skipped generation. It's like video games. If anyone plays video games, consoles, it feels like the last 2 console releases were just like iterative and like it wasn't like when you were a kid and you went from like a Sega Mega Drive to an N64 to like a PlayStation 1 and you're like...
Games got 3D and stuff.
Mind blown. Tech has sort of plateaued. And the camera companies are also struggling to know... They have to go on these like product cycles where they have to keep banging out, new phones, new cameras, and they're struggling to sort of market them. Instead of being like, we made the camera the same, but we improved on nearly every single thing, they're like... Well, that would be boring, and it's difficult to like market that. We're just going to like make the number higher and say it's 8K.
Exactly,
So then people will be like, well, the last camera was 4K, this one's 8K, must be better.
Like, people often kind of make the comparison to smartphones. I don't think cameras are quite at smartphone. Like, if this was about smartphones, I'd be like really over there, because I think they're really peak. Like, smartphones don't change year to year.
It's brands like DJI and Blackmagic that are giving us these exciting moments now.
Exactly.
Because they're doing weird stuff like with the Ronin 4D or like the Pixis 12K, which is like this incredible camera crammed into a small body for an affordable price.
RGB, WW sensor tech.
Let's have more of that happening across the board from all the brands. Like, blow our socks off.
I want a $5,000 Ariel XNX.
Yeah, let's make it happen. The affordable camera gear market is in a bubble that's about to burst.
I'm staying. I'm going neutral. Yeah, I think that there are definitely elements of that that's true. There's an argument against it. What I'm trying to say is, if you're talking about lav mics, if you're talking about wireless microphones, there's too many. We shouldn't make any more. There is certain gaps in the market where I think, we need more affordable gear to come there. So it really depends for me which part of this. It has to be much more niche and nuanced.
Yeah, I think we're in this like perfect storm of a lot of the stuff is coming from like companies centered in China that are producing camera kit that is incredibly affordable, which is doing great stuff for democratizing film kit and who can get access to it. But then we've got what's going on in America with tariffs. And I imagine a lot of these Chinese companies, that's their biggest market. That's going to be taken away from them overnight, or it has already, and they're in trouble, I think. I think a lot of those companies are going to... We might not see them in the next 5 to 10 years. And you've got this like second wave coming in, which is like the advent of AI and what that's going to do in terms of people shooting and the availability of work. We keep hearing all the stuff that's going to make us all jobless, yet we have every week a new lens set being released.
Yeah. If all these kind of budget lens manufacturers no longer exist, would we go back to having to remortgage a house to get a kit of cine lenses? Or...
I think there'll be a consolidation. I think, like there'll be winners and losers, right? And the winners, those companies disappear, competition decreases. It means that it's worse off for the consumer.
And I guess the used budget lens will always exist. Once it's
Yeah.
here, it's not.
Yeah, exactly.
Hopefully, there's a sweet spot in the middle.
The camera tech niche on YouTube is dying.
It depends how creative people get.
You've got to offer people something a bit more, because it's so saturated now with people reviewing stuff, and the brands are sending stuff out to so many people that...
Yeah, you don't really want to grow a channel where people are only coming for the equipment. You kind of want them to come because you are providing something else outside of that. That should always be included, and that's where I'm neutral, because I think personalities can exist and stuff. But if it was solely based on a channel that has no soul or personality and it's just based
like tech specs,
then
or
yeah, I
something.
agree massively.
So I'm on this like thing now where I'm like, do I just put out less videos now, spend a bit more time on each one? Or...
If someone comes to look at a lens review, but they accidentally learn that you lit an interview in a certain way, there's like a byproduct of watching the video.
Yeah.
It's a bit of like educational, a bit of your personality.
Yeah.
It's a bit of like everything comes together, and like you kind of enjoy that as a whole. I think that is what needs to grow, and then the kind of just, this is a lens and these are all the real technical parts of it.
Flip it a bit. If someone came to you and said, shall I start a gear review channel?
It needs to not be soulless. You need to sit across. You need to really kind of get your personality into it. What is probably the hardest thing to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say don't do it.
You don't waste your life, kid.
Run.
Run. Most creators buy way more gear than they actually need.
This may be controversial. I am anti-gas. Do you know the gear acquisition?
When you mean anti?
As in, I don't agree with the statement, because I think, I often refer to people who like sports cars. That's my analogy on it. It's like, no one really criticizes. There's no negative kind of phrase to the guy who buys sports cars. And is it the best financial decision that he swaps one for another and he's paying monthly payments, leasing them and hiring them? No. But the guy loves sports cars. Like, there's got to be a world. Like, I love cameras. Like, I often swap cameras because I like swapping cameras.
But you're also like actually making money on a monthly basis from doing that. And I see a lot of junior people, they're just like, I just spent like $2,000 on an anamorphic lens. And I'm like, why? I'm like, get yourself set up with the gear you need and buy like used and get yourself going and making money. But like, get a cheap 24-7 70, get a tripod, get a cheap light, some basic mics, and you can shoot 75% of projects on that and earn good money.
Yeah.
And then when you're, turning over and you're like, this tripod's not very good, or like, I wish I had a slightly wider lens, then that's a good reason to like buy the wider lens, because you're pushing up against those. So that's how I try and approach stuff.
I often find myself, I often like have for example, what's lighting us now is like a 500 watt possibly.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm probably running it on 2%. And it's just like, realistically, I could just have a 60 watt light.
Yeah.
That happens all the time.
Yeah.
I agree, yeah. So, yeah, anyway. I like to really understand and know my equipment. Like, it's better to have minimal equipment, what you truly understand.
This is another thing.
Half know.
Yeah. And every time you hop in between cameras, it's like, what's this icon mean? I'm getting stressed out now. What does it mean? Like, what's this setting? Where is this setting?
Yeah.
Rather than just using the same camera for like 3 or 4 years and being sort of old, reliable. And
I agree.
You don't need anything more than a mirrorless hybrid to do pro level work. Yeah.
I have a video what's either gone up on my channel about buying a new camera, and I touch on this, that the way I buy expensive cameras has been shaped with just how good mirrorless cameras I've got. You can't really ignore the quality. You can internal RAW, external RAW, you're getting false color, open gate, all these amazing features just can't be ignored anymore. Like, the actual, what you can achieve with a mirrorless camera is just way beyond what you really need.
Even like any mirrorless camera from the last 5 years, you can just rock up to a shoot, and like S5. I've been using that on client shoots this year, and that's what, a 5-year-old camera now, maybe 4-year-old. Yeah, absolutely fine. It's great. I think as long as it's got a certain number of specs, like 10-bit, don't need autofocus. Can perform relatively well, has enough dynamic range, which most cameras do now. Yeah, you can shoot most stuff.
I remember the 5D with Magic Lantern. I mean, that's some of that stuff was incredible.
YouTubers are obsessed with specs that don't really matter in the real world.
I'll go first on this. I think you can remove YouTubers and just pretty much put like camera nerds, camera people, me. Yeah. I'm aiming this myself. I'm just lost in camera specs, where the actual output of the project 90% of them don't really. You know what I mean? There's like the exposure triangle, an ND filter, and you can, as long as you're exposing right and it's in focus.
And I think some people, again, like people who are obsessed with cameras become more obsessed with like stuff on paper. And maybe that's okay if that's what you're doing, but it's dangerous to convince yourself that you can't shoot a good project on whatever modern camera because it's got a slow sensor readout speed or
Oh, yeah.
And I find some of these online debates where cameras are crucified and sent to the scrap heap before they've even released. It's just like farcical.
Yeah, I even get to the point of where like people obsess over my 50 frames per second or 60 frames per second crops in. I don't have full frame 120. I'm just like, no, like the viewer don't care. The actual finished product is just like whatever.
And like even on the previous generation LUMIX cameras where you had to crop in, I never really like broke any of my projects.
The FX3 is a great example of, because it's 4K sensor, has benefits of faster readout. But what people don't speak about is the negatives of there is no APS-C mode in 4K.
Yeah.
You're in 1080p to crop in. So like the amount of times I'm like, oh, I'll be in a pinch and a run and gunner, but I want to crop in. Well, you can't.
Autofocus is making filmmakers lazy. Yeah. Oh, I don't know.
I know people that physically can't manual focus. They have entered the game with Sony and LUMIX and they only know, like, I know someone who was like asking me whether they should buy a Blackmagic camera recently, and we got quite far into conversation before I said they don't have any AF system built in, and they were like, what? They were like, all right, I'm not buying one. And it's like, well then, yeah. So then, yeah, I kind of agree we are getting a bit lazy. So
if you're like shooting events or, you know, stuff where you're on your own, you have to capture something in the moment. You can't pull focus all the time, but yeah, it does make me worry that people that come up on these and then they want to enter into a more sort of like professional environment where maybe they're shooting on a camera or there's an expectation they shoot on a camera that doesn't have autofocus. Where are they going to go? What they're going to do?
Yeah, you should always have a fundamental understanding of how your equipment works. So, and if you understand how manual focusing works, it will save you one day when AF don't work.
Okay. T1.4 looks more cinematic than T5.6.
A little bit. I mean, right, I'm going to start because I know you've got a really good point coming up. I'm going to say that if you'd have said 2.8, I'd be here.
Okay.
5.6 seems extreme. But you go.
I'm entering my 5.6 era, I think. I'm like, what are you on about? Like, most of the time now when I'm shooting interviews, it's at 2.8. And if it's anything above 50, you're probably going to be going to 5.6 anyway. Also, you know, if you're doing doc and stuff moving around, you're at T4 maybe even pushing it to T5.6. If you're shooting on weird anamorphics, you're going to be stopping down a bit as well.
Yeah.
And I think, again, it's like, it falls in, I think, also to the full frame Super 35 arguments of around like, this is automatically, you know, the T1.2 is just across the board without even thinking about it better than, so if you have the lens, you should use it at that. Whereas I'm more like, 1.2 is like a sort of like, if you're in a pinch in low light and you absolutely can't get it any more light, open it up, and that's your like last resort.
I also like f1.4, T1.4 lenses or T19 because I know I'm going to get a better image at T2.8.
Yeah, that as well.
Yeah, because like the more you step down, the more you're going to be in control of your images. But other than that, yeah, I'm the same. I don't like shooting wide open. But I don't shoot wide open.
There's another thing of also this like, if you're filming in a boring location and you're not winning on that front, blow it out. But also like if you've got really interesting locations and the lighting is gorgeous, stop your lens down and like allow that to be part of the story, part of the scene, rather than just smearing it all away.
Yeah.
Influencers and reviewers are responsible for gear acquisition syndrome.
I think we are somewhat, I'm going to say we. I think, are we this? Is this aimed at us? I think we are somewhat responsible, but also I think people who are saying that we are responsible would do the exact same as we've done in our situation. You know, it's hard not to be like, if you love filming, if you love creating images, and someone's like, here's this new tool, what's going to aid you in creating images, and you want to take it and you love it, then you want to tell people about it. Like, and then it creates this vicious cycle of where we are today.
Everything's good now. So that, like, what do you say when you make a video about a new piece of gear and it is good?
Yeah.
It's good. But I feel like there is like the side of like the camera companies and gear companies, they just use YouTubers to create that desire. You know, they know that they pick the ones that will show it off with the beautiful footage, and even in the most sort of well-adjusted people, there's a little switch that will flicker, be like, well, I kind of want to create work that looks like that. And that little thing looks like it'll
it's kind of false sense of security.
All right, I hope that was interesting. Thanks so much to Gary for joining me in this. And don't forget, we have a whole other video going through another bunch of controversial statements on his channel. So there'll be a link somewhere to go over to that. Make sure that you subscribe to his channel and also to mine, to like the videos.
Yeah, I mean, my channel's like your channel, but just worse. So if you want like a less quality version of what Ed's channel is, come subscribe to my channel.
Yeah, how could I top that for an outro? See ya.
Bye.